Welcome to Ellen Ruth Soap. I'm Ellen, and today we are going to make a foaming bath butter whip. Now, I'm not sure why they call it a bath butter, because in the soap base that we're making today, there's no butters, but you can add butters, and that'll be next week's video. We're going to take today's soap base that we're making from scratch. This goes, I would put this head to head with the Stephenson foaming bath butter whip. This is kind of a homemade dupe. You will save a lot of money making it from scratch at home, which we're doing today. And we'll go step by step how to make this soap base. Next week, we're going to talk about the things that we can do with the soap base, like make it a whipped bath butter, or a salt scrub, or a sugar scrub. So many things to do with it. Now, there are ways to make a whipped soap base using a soap paste. And that's wonderful, and that's a whole other video. Today, we're going to make the Stephenson dupe, which is not a soap paste, it's actually a soap base. It's not hard to make, a little time consuming, the crock pot, the melting, takes a little bit of time. So I would consider this almost a beginner to moderate soaping project. It's really not hard. So we're going to get all the ingredients together and get my work surface prepped, and we're going to come back and I will talk through step by step how to make your homemade from scratch whipped soap base. All right, guys, we are back, and it's time to start measuring our ingredients. I've pre-measured everything just to make it easier for filming, and I'm going to be measuring right into my little saucepan here on my hot plate. And let me tell you before we get started, this does have a meltdown phase, and you can do it in the microwave if you like your microwave. If you hate the microwave, don't use it. You could do this in a crock pot very easily. I'm doing it in this little situation. It's like a water bath, and the water just helps distribute the heat a little more evenly. I could even put this right on the hot pad if you have it on a really low temperature. But the point is we need to melt some of these ingredients. So that's the situation I'm using here. You've got some options. Just wanted to mention that. So let's talk about our ingredients today. Start with the most basic ingredient here. I have distilled water, and I have 292 grams of distilled water to be precise. Then the next ingredient I have here is vegetable glycerin, and this adds an emollient feel. I love vegetable glycerin in this formula. It brings a lot of moisture, it's humectant, it's all the good things. Pardon my phone dinging, I forgot to silence it in the background if you heard that. This is 355 grams of glycerin. And then my next liquid ingredient here is, I got this from Wholesale Supplies Plus. A lot of suppliers, you can get this. It's called Bubble Up. That's the generic name. And let me grab my phone here and pronounce it correctly. The chemical name for this is Cocamidopropyl Betaine, or betaine, however you say it, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, but that's what this is, but Bubble Up is the easier name. So that's what I have here, and this is 292 grams of Bubble Up, or the other name. My next ingredient is Stearic Acid, and this is going to bind everything together and give this some structure when we whip it. This will help hold the whip texture to it. So stearic is kind of important. I have 74 grams of stearic acid here. And the last ingredient in the main bulk is my sodium cocoyl isethionate. I think I'm saying that right. The short name is SCI. This comes in noodle form or a powder, and I have a powder. And this recipe requires 16 ounces or 454 grams, and that is exactly the size of this bag. It's a 16-ounce bag, and this is from Nature's Garden. So I have several different suppliers here. My glycerin, I forgot to mention, is from Soaper's Choice, this big bulk container, and my stearic acid is from Amazon. So I have several different suppliers represented here, but we're getting the job done. When this is all made, melted, and cooled, we will be adding a preservative because it has a water phase. Anytime you have a water phase, you must have a preservative. We're using Optiphen today. This one's from Brambleberry, but we'll talk about that when we get there. That comes later. Right now, this is very not precise. We're just going to put all our ingredients in here. Let me turn my little hot plate on. I love my little single burner hot plate. Very inexpensive. Got it on Amazon. This thing's been a workhorse. We need to add all our ingredients, and I will tell you, before I open this bag up, I'm going to put a mask on. I recommend if you have a ventilator mask, that's even better. This is very puffy. It will irritate your lungs. Once it is wet and mixed in, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. But when you're measuring it out, or when I'm pouring this bag in, really want to wear a mask for that. So word to the wise. All right, let's get to putting our ingredients in my little hot plate. In no particular order, by the way. Some people are very particular about it. I have not found that it makes a huge difference. So I'm going to start with my water. And then my glycerin. Now, I have seen recipes for this base that use a much lower percentage of the glycerin, and they are very nice recipes. So if you have a recipe or find one that has a different ratio, it's okay. I just happen to like a high glycerin. I think it just adds something extra to the whole total. All right, and in goes our Bubble Up with the name that I probably mispronounced. And now, here comes this, even though it's a powder, will melt, and the stearic acid will melt. And so that's what the heated phase is for. We are wanting these to melt completely and incorporate with the other ingredients. So we'll talk about that as we get into the melting and stirring process. So I'm going to quit talking and get my mask on when I open that up. So here goes our dry, melty portions. As you can see, my little saucepan was a very close fit for this. My goodness. Next time I will use a bigger saucepan for this recipe size. So now all we are doing is just heating this up. This should take, anywhere from 15-20 minutes up to a half hour to get this fully melted and get a beautiful glossy, absolutely no grittiness. That's what we're looking for. I'll show you on the spatula when we get close to that. But it's just nothing to rush. You don't want to scorch your ingredients or anything. That's why a crock pot is a great option. And again, if you don't hate the microwave, that's always a good option too, because it won't scorch your things. And I would say if you were going to do the microwave, do it in about 1 to 2 minute bursts, stir it and then burst again if that's the route you're taking. Please don't hate on me. People are very passionate about their microwave opinions. That's awesome for you, but let's just be nice to everybody. So anyway, we're just going to let this melt. It's going to take a while, so I'm not going to film the entire melting process. I'll bring you back. Let me show you on the spatula here, if the camera will pick it up. You can see some grittiness and also clumps, but it's just not smooth. It looks like, what's an example? Like if you put salt in a glass of water and didn't dissolve it yet, it has that kind of grit to it. So we want it completely smooth. All right, I've made an executive decision. I wanted to speed things along a little bit, and I went ahead and put this in a bigger, more appropriate sized saucepan, which I should have done in the first place. So make sure your pan's big enough. And I'm putting this directly on the heat, just to speed things along. So I'm sitting over this, mothering it. I'm stirring it. I would not walk away with it directly on the hot plate, but if I'm here stirring, I feel very comfortable doing that. So just to give you an update. And you don't want to stir too aggressively or it will start to foam, and you don't really want this to foam up right now. So just a gentle stirring to keep the heat distributed. Again, a crock pot would be your friend here. You could walk away if you had a crock pot, but I didn't want to pull out my crock pot. So here we are, and I'm just going to sit here and stir this. When I pause the video, I have an audiobook playing in the background, and so this is very relaxing. And we are almost there. It's looking less gritty and a little more glossy. So it has been about 15 to 20 minutes heating up so far. All right, so we are about 25 to 30 minutes into melting, and I am satisfied with the amount of melt I have on this. It looks creamy and smooth. I don't think there's anything unmelted. It's at a simmer. It's actually boiling. And boy, am I thankful I put it in a bigger pot, because as it heats up, it's risen up a little bit. Whew, don't make my mistake. Use the right size pan. So I am going to go ahead and turn this off and pop this off of here. Put it on the tabletop, stainless steel. Make sure if you've got a hot pan, you put it on a pot holder or something that can support the heat. Be careful. So this project probably would not be for little people at this stage while it is so hot, but after this cools and it comes to the whipping stage, this would be wonderful to do with a young person. What a great project. And we'll talk more about all the possibilities in next week's video. We're going to be whipping this up and adding some really fun additives, and that's going to be cool. So right now, more patience. This is kind of, like I said, it's a pesky project. It just takes a while. It's super easy. But now I've got to just quit stirring, walk away, and let this cool down completely. At least under 120 degrees before we come in with our Optiphen. And I'd like to do that while it's still a little warm so that we can stir it, because this will get quite thick when it's cold. So we want to let this cool down to about 120, 100 to 120, add our Optiphen, and then let it cool completely. You can even walk away, let it sit overnight. It won't develop a skin or anything because the whole thing solidifies. So patience, that's the key word today. That's what we're doing. So now I'm going to stop stirring, walk away, and let this bad boy cool, because this is at the boiling point. It's very hot right now. All right, it just dawned on me to pull out my thermometer for you all so I can show you how hot it is right now coming off the thing. So it's saying 157 degrees, so it's even cooled off since I pulled it off there. It was boiling, which boiling point in Fahrenheit is 212 degrees. So it's cooled off a bit, but we have a ways to go. All right, it has been about an hour since we made this, and I took it off the heat, and I want you to see how it's kind of clumping up. It's runny on the bottom, stiff on the top. This is perfectly normal and good, but while it is still very runny and pliable, we want to go ahead and add our preservative in here, again, because of the water phase. So I'm going to be adding, let me look at my recipe. All right, so I'm going to be adding 1% of this total volume, which is going to be 14 grams of Optiphen, which is the preservative I'm using in this today. But first, let me stir this up and take the temperature for you to show you that it is okay to put in here. And Optiphen, you want to add it under 120 degrees. So here we go. All right, let's take the temperature. 115. So we are good to go. I've got my scale tared out, and I need 14 grams. And I will have the recipe written in ounces and grams and percentages down below. Okay, and now I want to stir this in and get it incorporated really well and thoroughly. So I will stir this quite a bit. And then we are just going to walk away and let this cool overnight. Tomorrow we will come back and check the texture of it, and I will do a little lather test even, just to show you how wonderful this is. It was lathering up when I was back there doing the dishes, and I washed off one of my spatulas. I'm like, oh my goodness, this has a beautiful lather. So we can give you a good, accurate look at it. And I'm just trying to get this all blended. I don't want any parts without a preservative. You could even throw a stick blender in here if you wanted to. I don't think I'm going to do that, but you could if you wanted to. But you don't want to foam it up right now. We're not whipping, we're just stirring and incorporating. All right, I think that is pretty good. All right, so now I'm just going to walk away and probably let this sit overnight, and we'll be back tomorrow to see the consistency and wrap it up. And we are back. It is the next day, and look at this gorgeous, thick, I mean, it is solid in here. It's everything I hoped it would be. There's no odor. The ingredients were pretty odorless, and we didn't add any fragrance. We are going to do some really fun and special things with this next week. We're going to whip up 3 different ways to make beautiful whipped soap out of this. One of them is going to have butter in it. We're going to do a salt scrub, a sugar scrub, coffee in there. It's going to be awesome. So that's coming next week. But right now I wanted to show you, before I made this or formulated a recipe that I love for this, I used to buy my whipped soap base. This is what it looks like, crystal soap base, the Stephenson's Melt and Pour, and I have a little left over. And so let me show you what it looks like. Very similar. So we're going to do a consistency test here so I can show you that these are really similar. I actually think this is better, but here it is. I have it, so I'm going to show you. Okay, before we get into all that, let me talk about how you would store this. So I looked up the Stephenson directions for expiration date, and they say 1 to 2 years after the time you purchase it is recommended. I would apply the same for this. So if you store this in an airtight container, something like a mason jar would be great, a plastic top that is airtight, sealed, I think that this would last, again, for 1 to 2 years. I would suggest, you're going to love it so much you'll use it before then, I'm sure. But that's what I would say the shelf life on this would be, very similar to Stephenson. And these are just some ideas to store it. You could use this as is. This is going to foam up and be luxurious and cleansing and everything it should be, but it's so much more fun to whip it. So with that being said, I don't have gloves on. This is going to be for friends and family. So if you were making this to sell, please wear your gloves while you touch the product. But I'm not selling this, so my gloves are off so I can get a feel and just describe it to you. So that's what I'm doing. So let me put my finger in here. So you can just sort of run your finger through. It's like, what would I say? Maybe cold butter. And then the Stephenson here, it's quite a bit firmer, but again, I can run my finger through. It's a little stiffer. Just a little, barely. But there it is. That's the consistency, very similar. And now we're going to do a lather test with this. Let me go grab a bowl of warm water and show you how beautiful this lathers. And then next week when we make the whipped soap with all the different ingredients, I'll do a lather test on one of those also. But I want to just show you that this in and of itself is a beautiful lathering soap base you are going to love. So let me go grab some water and we will lather this up. All right, it's time to lather this up. So I'm going to come in here and just get a little bit here. And again, when this whips, the volume is going to get very abundant. So this is a lot of soap base over here that we made. And when it's whipped, it's going to lather a little easier because it won't be as dense, So it starts out creamy right now, and we're going to build it up. There we go. Look at that. It's gorgeous and creamy. You could even make a shaving soap out of this, a whipped shaving fluff. It just feels wonderful. That glycerin in there, this feels very like soft feeling. I think it's just divine. When you add more water, the bubbles get a little bigger. So stay tuned next week when we turn this into beautiful scrubs and whipped and lighten it up. We can color it, scent it, make it anything you want. It's fabulous. And I hope you come back next week when we play around with this even more. I hope you enjoyed the recipe, and I hope you have a wonderful day.